Sky is so high, if you don't know how to fly, aim feelings here to make you fly. Sky is so high, if you don't know how to fly, aim feelings here to make you fly. Here we go.
The points that we discussed, the rules of interviewing, and she wanted me to explain that point 8, which said maintain a conversational flow. Okay, so when it says that maintain a conversational flow, so it means that you have to basically the conversation should be from both the sides, whether it's verbal or non-verbal. So when the interviewer is talking, you don't sit there like a robot, but with your body language or just a nod of head, you make sure that you are also part of the conversation. So the interviewer also knows that you are listening to what he's saying. So with your body language, you have to make sure that you are engaging yourself in the conversation. Okay, so when the interviewer is asking you something, you have to look interested and you have to listen to what he's saying. Probably nod a little bit. Don't keep nodding like that, but you have to make sure that he knows that you're understanding what he or she is trying to tell you, right? What is the question or whatever they're talking about. So that is like you're maintaining a conversational flow from your side as well. It is not just one person talking. The other person reacts to what is being spoken or what is being said. Okay. And also sometimes, like I said, the interviewers give you a chance to talk or ask a few questions towards the end. So make use of that chance. And if you have something in mind, please go ahead and ask them. Don't ask questions like salary or my free tickets and all that. Don't ask questions like that. Ask more relevant questions, like if you feel that something that is really important, an experience or something that you faced and you've mentioned in your resume and you think that should have come up, just try to bring that up in your conversations. Okay. Or ask things like, is there something else that what do you require from me, or what do you expect of me if I'm selected today? So ask things like this. Don't ask what is the salary going to be. That is the HR who's going to tell you about the salary. And also especially for freshers and when bulk hiring is done, especially for interviewers for cabin crew, ground staff, hotels, they usually interview a lot of people on the same day. So you might not even be given a chance to ask questions because they have a lot of candidates to interview. So this might not even happen, but if it does happen, don't think that you're not allowed to ask questions. Okay, so go ahead and use this chance to ask something. So does that clear your question, Pushpa?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. No problem. Okay. Okay, so yesterday we spoke about how you have to prepare for your interview, what goes in the preparation, like researching and your presentation, what are the skills of a good interview. So we spoke about all that, right? And we spoke about a few important questions that are almost part of all the interviews that happen. There are certain basic questions like, tell me something about yourself, or why do you want to join this organization, why aviation, or why hospitality. So these are questions that a lot of interviews feature. It will be 80 to 90% times these questions are always asked. So these are the questions that you have to prepare answers to in advance, and you have to practice that again and again, because the more you practice, the more confident you become. Okay, so that is very important, and that is for you all to do it. I can only tell you to do it. I cannot practice for you, right? Me practicing will not benefit you. Only when you practice, it is going to benefit you. Fine. So then we'll go ahead with the module. We discuss the rules of interviewing. Then interviewing skills introduction. So an interview is an exchange of information. It allows the employer to evaluate your personality, communication skills, attitudes, values, motivation, interests, and technical skills. The interview also enables you to obtain information about the organization in order to make an informed decision. An interview is a discussion between equals. Although you need to treat the interviewers with respect, there is no need to be overly differential. Knowing how to interview is one of the best skills you will ever have. The following information will provide you with steps to effective preparation, success on the interview day, and effective follow-up. Okay, so again, they've just said that, interview is not only one party talking, and this is a conversation between two equals. Okay, we know you need the job, but at the same time, they also need people working for them, right? You have to be respectful, but also it should be both ways. They should also respect you as a candidate. Okay, so you cannot be overly like, oh my god, you are god. Don't treat them like god. They are there to give you a job, but at the same time they also need workforce, and that is why you both should have an equal opportunity to know each other. This is just an opportunity for the interviewer to know you, and also for you to know a little bit about the organization. However, knowing about the organization is also a part of your preparation, where you get to research. This is the time when you can research about the company, and you have to understand if your working principles match with the principles of the company, right? So your research is also not, you can't get to know a lot about the organization during the interview. However, there are certain things that you will get to know. The work culture, a little bit about what kind of people will be working with you. But it is a chance for the interviewer to know the candidate more, right? So it will mostly be the interviewer asking questions. However, that doesn't mean that you are any less or you should be disrespected for that. Okay, so it has to be it should be two equals and exchanging information about each other. Okay, so then we will study about 5 steps to effective preparation. First is research. Prepare for the interview by researching the facility. You should know enough about the facility to justify why you are looking for employment with them, and to come up with insightful questions about the facility. Okay, I think they're discussing some kind of one particular facility, but nevertheless, whatever organization or whatever company you are appearing for the interview for, you always, like we spoke yesterday also, we spoke about this, that there are people who told me they want to work for Qatar and they want to work for Etihad or something. Remember one of the days we spoke about it, which airline that you would like to work. So if you already have something like that in your mind, start researching and start reading about that organization, because you have the time right now. Okay, and you'll know their work culture, you know what kind of a company it is, and there's a lot of information available. So you make use of that time. This should be a part of your preparation. The researching about the company should be a part of the preparation that goes into appearing for the interview. When you read about the company, you also get to know what are they exactly looking for in the candidate, which will also help you formulate your answers accordingly. When you know what they are looking for in the candidate, you kind of understand their mindset. And when you understand somebody's mindset, you know how to react to that, right? If you don't know what are they looking for, you can go on telling your own stories and they don't like you at all. So that can happen. So when you research the company, there's a better chance of you making it through the interview, because you now understand their mindset and their company policies and principles. So researching the company is also very, very important. Okay. So what are the research sources they've said? First research where you can look up for the information is the internet. Review the facility's website, look at all current openings, what other types of jobs are available at the facility. This can provide you with helpful information about career paths, etc. Look at the website from the vantage point of a client or patient. How does the facility present itself to its patients or clients? So we all use internet, right? We spoke about that, Instagram and Facebook and all that. Everybody's using internet every day. All of us are, right? So make use of that source to know more about the company. Also, there can be other job openings which can open your mind to more job perspectives in future. You get to know what other kind of jobs is the company offering, which will also help you to it'll give you a broader view of what else can you do. Okay, because sometimes we are just too focused that I just want this job, but probably there are other things which you are better at. So when you look at these other options, sometimes you come across things that you feel, oh, I can also do this. So it gives you more perspectives. So internet is the first. Then is alumni. Try to find Jefferson alumni. Okay, they're discussing about some company, I think Jefferson, but any alumni of any company at the facility. There are alumni binders for each major located in the Career Development Center. Give them at least a week to respond to you, or possibly longer. Don't ask what the interview questions will be. Do ask about their jobs and job culture. So they're talking about some particular organization where they have a binder where you can contact certain people who've worked for the organization. However, you might not have that chance. But if you know people who have flown earlier or who have worked for the industries that you will be appearing for the interview, sometimes you just have some references, your personal acquaintances. And so you can ask them questions like what kind of work culture is it, but also don't ask too many questions. I feel sometimes it is the other person's perspective can, it can make an impression on your mind, which might not be good, because a certain person can have a different kind of experience. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will also have the same experience. Okay, so it's nice to ask basic questions like how is the work culture, but don't get too much into like exactly what happens on the flight and what happens with the passengers, and how will I do this and how will I do that, because everybody has different priorities in their lives and everybody has a different way of working. What I like, you might not like doing that, and what you like, I might not like doing that, right? So always don't get into too much of detail until you experience it for yourself. I don't think you should judge too much before that. Okay, it's nice to have basic information, but don't get too much into asking ex-employees or people who are working at that organization too much, because then it can kind of leave a negative impression on you about the company sometimes, okay, which might not be true. And you should always have a very reliable source. So until you really know that person, I don't think you should go ahead and ask too many details, because you don't know how reliable that person is with the information. So it can completely like mess up with your brain, and you might just have a completely different perspective of that organization, which might be completely wrong. Okay, but that is also an option. You can ask people who have worked with the organization and who are still working probably with the organization. Then is the person who calls to set up the interview. Ask him or her to send you a copy of the annual report and other materials that may be helpful, the philosophy of care, manual, mission, statement, etc. Compile the relevant facts from all of these sources, including patients, population. Okay, so this is not more or less, this is not even applicable for you all, because they're talking about some clinical some kind of a hospital or a clinical company where they have patients, and it's completely different from what you all will be having. Probably you'll get an email that you have to, or you will go for an interview, because these hirings always come out in newspapers or online. Okay, so you will not probably have the chance to talk to someone before going for the interview, right? So you will probably just, it might be just a walk-in interview. So this, you might not have the chance to ask somebody something like, what is it going to be like, or ask for, this is a completely different scenario that they've chosen here. Okay. Fine. So first was research. So research from the available sources that you have, like internet, or even alumni you can use to a certain extent. You can ask employees or people who have worked for the industry, any company in that industry. Okay, so these are things that you can use for researching. Then second point is self-examination. Think about your strengths and how they might relate to the healthcare facility. For example, you may be interviewing with a regional spinal cord injury center affiliated with a prominent teaching hospital. You had a tenure, okay. Examine your job-related skills, accomplishments, and goals. Specifically, look for ways in which you stand out from your other classmates. Okay, so self-examination. After that, after you've done the research, now you know a little bit about that company. You have a little information about that company, right? So now you try to match what are the qualities or what are the qualifications that you have that match with that job role. So what are the things that you have that would be a positive, that would be an edge for you to get that role. Okay. And also you should also know there will be a lot of candidates appearing for that interview. So if there is something, probably like this course might be an added advantage for you. A lot of people just go for the interviews without any course. Okay. So this course, like, it can be an added advantage for you. So use this when somebody says, when in an interview you say, how do you think you're prepared for this job role, or why should we consider you over somebody else? So say I've already had a little bit of background training about customer service, and I already know a little bit because I've done this course, or maybe you've participated, or you have an experience. So bring that up. Think of these situations that you can use during the interview, which might give you a little edge over the other candidate. Okay, because now you know what the company is looking for. Now you have to match your criteria, you have to match their criteria, okay, with your qualities and your qualifications. So this is self-examination. Then the third is develop answers to the expected interview. Be responsive and be prepared to give honest answers. Whenever possible, support your answers with specific examples from your own experience. Although this is not a complete list, below are some of the difficult interview questions that our graduates have encountered. Keep in mind the ways in which you stand out from other candidates as you reflect on answers to these questions. If the employer asks a difficult question, what you have not prepared for, ask for a minute to think about it and give a quality response. At the interview, you will need to convey how you will contribute to the facility's healthcare team by demonstrating a willingness to learn, previous skills and knowledge, and understanding of the facility's philosophy and goals. So again, they've given a few questions that some of the candidates told them they were asked. Again, they are stressing on the same thing, that use examples and situations that you faced in life to support. If you say, like, I'm very flexible with timings, and these are things that you should have when you're working for the hospitality industry, like, because you will not have a schedule, right? You will sometimes have to report at probably 3 in the morning, sometimes at 6 in the evening, or sometimes 10 in the morning. So you will not have a schedule like that. So, when you say something like, I'm very adaptable or I'm very flexible, if you have probably worked somewhere where you've had shifts like that, support that with that situation. I have done that already, and so I'm already used to that kind of work schedule. So all this, when you say that you have a quality, try to support it with either, you don't have to have an experience. You already have made experiences in your life, right? At school, at work, at home. We all are making experiences every day. So you can use any of those experiences to support your answers, right? Okay, keep in mind the ways in which you stand out. Yeah. So again, they say that you should know your qualities and as an individual. What is the uniqueness and what are the qualities that make you unique? To use those qualities or qualifications, whatever it is, to use those in your answers, because then that gives you a little edge over the other candidates. A few questions that they've given is, tell me about yourself. This is like one of the questions that is probably asked in every interview. Tell me something about yourself. So this is the first question probably they will be asked. Any interviewer will ask, introduce yourself or tell me something about yourself. So this question you should just, and this is nothing. This is not testing your knowledge. This is just, you have to, there is no right or wrong in this. Okay. You can give any information that you have, that every individual will have a different question, different information, right? My name is so and so, these are my qualifications, my family has so many people and I like doing this. So there's no, even if you said something, just, it's okay. Even if you've said, I have 2 sisters and you only have 1 sister, just go with the flow. Okay, they don't know. So there's no right and wrong in this. You just have to be confident. Through this question, what they are trying to test is only how confident you are and how well do you speak. Okay, so don't fumble. Okay, oh, I made a mistake. Even if you made a mistake, if you can, go ahead, just carry on. If you want to apologize and say, oh, I'm so sorry I said that, and start talking again, right? So this is one of the questions that is the easiest, but this is a question which is asked probably in every interview. Okay. And this will be the first question. So this is probably your first impression that you will make on the interviewer once you start talking, other than just coming and sitting inside. Your communication skills will be tested. This will be the first test. So you have to perfect this question, if nothing else. Okay, then how did you become interested in this career? And so these are just some questions, general questions. Why aviation, and what qualities do you have that makes you a good candidate? Or there's questions like, tell me what are your strengths, or what are your weaknesses. These questions are a part of every interview. Okay, we can discuss these a little towards once you're more prepared. I feel these are before you are going for interviews and everything. Before that, we can start preparing for these questions. Okay, but you should already start thinking about the questions like these, like what answers can you give, what information can I give. Okay, so I want you all to start thinking about these questions. Then is illegal questions. During the course of your interview, you may be asked a question that is considered illegal by federal, state, or local laws. In the majority of cases, the employer will ask out of genuine curiosity or interest, as opposed to using your answer to discriminate against you. However, these type of questions are not relevant to your ability to perform the functions of the job, and you should not feel compelled to answer these questions. Some illegal topics are listed below. Age, as long as you meet, okay, marital status, religion, financial status, height, weight, citizenship and nationality, disabilities, arrest, work. Okay, I think they're talking about a different country altogether and a completely different job profile, because for our job, you will be asked what is your age, because there is a minimum age criteria. You will be asked about your health and fitness, because there is a certain fitness criteria as well that you have to meet. And you will be asked, you probably will be asked, though now airlines are open to you being married. That's not a problem with most of the airlines, but certain airlines do have a contract that if you are unmarried, you cannot get married for the next 1 or 2 years. Okay, but that is, I think, only 1 or 2 airlines like that. But most of the airlines are okay with that. But yeah, things like what is your religion and everything should actually not be asked by an interviewer. And I've never heard of somebody being asked a question like that, because your religion does not decide if you can be a good ticketing agent or a good receptionist at the hotel, or so these are things which are generally not asked. But if you are asked, then you should know that this is not right. Those are not, you should know your rights as a candidate. But most of the other things like height and weight and disabilities and age, these are things that will be asked for sure if you're going for service industry, because they will judge you on your height and weight and your appearance and your age. Okay. Arrest work is also another thing that you will, once you're shortlisted, you have to get a NOC from your local police station that you don't have any cases against you. So that is also another thing, that you're not convicted in any of the cases. So that is also another thing that you have to provide as a document once you are shortlisted. So these are all things that they've mentioned that is illegal. Probably this is a completely different scenario that they've taken off a different country and a different job role. But in our job and in our country, these things will be asked, and this is not illegal for sure. Employ the PAR techniques when answering difficult questions. So yesterday we spoke about another model while framing our question was STAR model, right? You think of a situation, then task. So now they're talking about another technique which is called the PAR technique, which is used to answer difficult questions. So P stands for problem, A stands for action you took, and then R stands for results you achieved. So sometimes your interviewers might ask, like, tell me a situation where you think it was you had to handle a difficult situation, and how did you step out of that? Like, how did you handle that situation? To judge your problem solving capabilities, basically. How well can you solve a problem if something is just thrown at you? So problems like questions like these are, or situation questions like these are also asked by interviewers, because they want to know your presence of mind and how well can you relate things together, and how well is your problem solving, uh, basically problem solving capabilities. So they want to judge you on that as well. Fine. So there will be times for questions like this that might just leave you stumbled for a moment, because you these are difficult questions, and for it is not easy for everybody to suddenly come up with a situation, right? So you can use this model that they're talking about is PAR. So first you think of the problem, describe a problem you faced or a task that you needed to accomplish. You must describe a specific event and supply the interviewer with enough detail to understand the situation or problem may have risen in a number of places, including a previous job or school. So since most of you are freshers, it does not have to be something from your previous experience. Not always. It can be something in your personal life. It can be something completely personal, your family issue, or something that happened at school or with your friend. Anything. You can talk about any situation. There's no right or wrong. But at the same time, you have to remember you are not just talking about some story, and you're not just like going on. You are talking about that situation because you are conveying that important information here, that this was a difficult situation, this is what I learned from the situation, and this is how this is how I handle, and this is what I learned from the situation, right? So you have to give a very precise example, but it can be completely personal. It can be personal, so you don't have to think, oh my god, how I cannot talk about my family here. I have to talk something that happened at work or that happened at school. It is okay to talk about your personal situations in questions like these. So then first you think of the problem, then action you took. Describe the action you took and be sure to keep the focus on you. If you are discussing a group project or effort, remember to focus on the actions you took and not the actions of the team. So again, if you've come up with a situation that something happened at school and we were given this project and it was a team project, so now they're not looking at what the team did to solve the problem, right? They want to know what you as an individual did, because they are interviewing you. They want to know more about your problem solving capabilities, right? So then you have to stress on what was your action, not the team action. What was your input? They want to know that, okay? And results you achieved. What happened? How did you resolve the problems or accomplish the task? What did you learn from the experience? And it doesn't always have to be a successful story that I did this and I was successful with that. Probably what I had thought, it did not work out like that, but this is the learning that I got from that. Okay, so we are all not always successful in everything we do, right? Any personal situation, anything that happened at school, but you even from something that you failed at, or you when you made a mistake, you look at the learning that you took from that. Okay, so you tell them, see, this is the problem that happened, this is what we did, and this is what I learned from that, or this is what the result was. Okay, so this is the PAR model to answer especially the difficult questions. Then is practice your answers. You have heard it before, but practice does make perfect. One possible way to practice is through a mock interview at the Career Development Center. We can help you critique your performance by evaluating the content of your answers, your body language, your voice intonation, eye contact, and general demeanor. Interviewers will assess your personality and attitude, career goals, confidence level, communication skills, both verbal and non-verbal, accomplishments, academic as well as personal, and knowledge and understanding of the organization and the career field. So then again, I think we've spoken so many times about how important practice is, and practice will make you perfect. Okay, so you have to you will probably have mock interviews towards the end of the course, where you will be asked questions like you would be appearing for an interview. It will almost be like that, but it will be with the faculty of the institute, right? So all that will help you. It will give you a little more confidence. You will get a little feeling how will you actually feel at the day of the interview. So it will give you a little feel of that. Okay, so Performance evaluating the contents. So interviewers are generally there are certain things that they judge you on, is like your body language, your confidence, how well can you speak, and how well you communicate is both verbal and your body language and your eye contact and your expressions. All that is a part of communication. So we have to remember that only the words that you say is not important. How you sit, how you interact, do you maintain a good eye contact and not stare into them at the same time. So all these things are also very important, along with what have you accomplished academically and personally. Okay, so if there are certain things that you did in school, you were good at sports, or you were part of the debate society in your school, also all these, so you should mention all that in your resume, because these are your personal accomplishments. Okay, we all have done +2 and graduation and all that. That is also important. But all these personal accomplishments that you have, all this should also be mentioned. If you have done something extra, or I'm good with computers, or all that, you should mention. Like once you get your certification for this course, this should be mentioned in that, because these are all added things that you have that you can use in your resume. Okay, then the 5th point is prepare a list of questions to ask the interviewer. You can also indicate your interest in the position by asking thoughtful, pertinent questions. Make sure that the questions that you ask are not questions that could have been answered through your research efforts. Remember to ask open-ended questions, which will supply you with more information and allow the interviewer an opportunity to talk. If you do not ask questions, it may be interpreted as a lack of enthusiasm for the position and the facility. We recommend asking 3 to 4 questions. It is perfectly acceptable to bring a written list of questions to the interview to use as a reference. Below is a list of possible questions that you may raise. What type of orientation program do you offer for new hires? Does your unit offer a clinical ladder? What is your... Okay, so again, this is probably... These things might not even happen in interviews, the initial interviews at least that you go for, because like I said, they have a lot of people to interview. Maybe towards the end you might be given a chance, and if you are given a chance, please make use of it. Okay, ask maybe one question or something. Don't just leave it there. Okay, just try or just say something like, as is there anything else that you expect from me as a candidate? Something as basic as that. Okay, so if you are given a chance, which I highly doubt you will be asked this, but if you are towards the end, probably if they're shortlisting just a few people, then they might give you a chance to talk towards the end. Okay, so these were the points. Okay, 5 steps to effective preparation, and these are the sources that we used to research. And then we spoke about self-examination, what kind of questions can be asked, what they should not be asking, difficult questions, the POWER model. Okay, so up till now, is everything clear? Is there anything you want to ask? Is there anything you want to know? When I ask something, you have to react. Body language, say a word, yes, no. You're already preparing for the interview, okay? So I should know that you're listening to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. Fine? I don't want you all to sit like this in the interview, like a robot, like that. No expressions, no smile, no nod, no yes, no no. Okay?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then 7 steps to success at the interview. And I actually thought during this module you will have a lot of questions, which I'm really surprised nobody has any questions, which gives me a feeling that you are not listening to me or you're not interested in this. I hope that is not the case, and that is just something that I'm feeling, right?
No, ma'am, we are listening. Actually, the module is pretty clear about every topic. So
Okay.
I don't have any questions because it's properly explained in the module itself.
Okay, perfect. So that gives me a little motivation to go ahead. Okay. So 7 steps to success at the interview. So first step is make a good first impression. Initial impressions are seldom changed during the course of an interview. Therefore, be certain that everything that occurs in those first 5 minutes conveys the fact that you are a professional. This includes arriving at least 15 minutes before the scheduled interview time, dressing professionally. It is better to be more formally dressed than underdressed. Women should wear comfortable, presentable shoes, stockings, and should be conservative regarding makeup, hair, nails, jewelry, or perfume. Men should wear dark dress socks and shoes that are shined and in good condition, and should be clean shaven and conservative regarding cologne or visible jewelry, and consider getting a haircut if necessary. Start with a firm handshake, a smile, and a good eye contact. Okay, so the first impression, we've heard this a lot of times in our life, right? First impression is the last impression. Well, I wouldn't say it's the last impression, but it is a very important part. You have the chance to change that the first impression, but it has a very high impact. When they see you coming and they see that you're dressed shabbily and you've not done your hair and your clothes are not the way they should be, then that does leave a very, very big impression on their mind. Okay, so that first interaction, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, we want that the first impression to be very, very good. Okay, because that is going to last for the rest of the interview. It will kind of be at the back of their mind. Even when you are talking, they will have that first impression, okay, of you when you walked in, and how were you dressed, what was your first communication, did you just walk in and just sit, or did you smile, said hello, you greeted the interviewer? Okay, so all that is very, very important. The first impression is very important. So then we all know how you will be told before the interview how you have to appear for the interview, what do you have to wear, for both women and men. Please do not wear anything like big jewelry, rings, and keep it minimal. Wear studs for women. For girls, please wear studs and wear a basic watch. Even men, please wear watches, but nothing too shiny, nothing too flashy and big jewelry chunks. Don't you overuse perfume that you're walking 10 miles away and somebody can already smell the fragrance from there. Okay, so we don't want that. You have to keep it subtle. At the same time, you have to make sure that you are smelling fresh. Okay, no matter you've traveled 2 hours, 3 hours, if you have to do that before an interview, please carry a change. Okay, you travel in something else. Once you reach the venue for the interview, you go and change there. Fine. So that is very, very important. And your clothes should be ironed well, your shoes should be shined, and please, this is especially for boys, only for boys in fact, please wear dark colored socks. Don't wear white socks. It doesn't go with the professional outfit. Okay, please wear dark colored socks, and don't wear those small ankle socks where when you sit your leg is shown. Okay, so wear like proper formal clothes. And for girls, mostly it is always Western formals. It can either be trousers or skirts. Some of the airlines are very specific that you have to wear a skirt. And closed shoes should be in good condition. They should be polished. So all that is very, very important, especially for the industry that we all are looking forward to join. Okay, because that is a part of this work culture. Stockings, perfumes, nails, yes. I don't want any funky nail colors like black and green and yellow. No, please. Basic nude or pearly white are the colors, or very light colors. Don't go with, even I would say, don't even go with red and maroon, all those colors. Your makeup also should be very subtle. We don't want fake eyelashes and purple eyeshadows. No, very neutral, basic makeup. But makeup is important, okay? But I don't want that disco night kind of makeup. Okay, keep it subtle, keep it very classy. And also, I have seen this a lot of time, boys coming for interviews and their nails are not cut. it is not a very good impression. Please make sure all these are part of your hygiene. Okay, so all this should be taken care of. And even for girls, like some people have these overly grown nails. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Everything should be as per the service industry, and service industry is very particular about these things. Your nails are in good condition, they are painted. Even if they're not grown, cut your nails. They should be even. Paint them well. Don't have chipped nail paint, all that. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind when you are going for the interview. If you have to travel, you have to make sure. And also reaching on time is very, very, very important. Always keep a buffer of 15 to 20 minutes. Reaching before time is still okay. Don't turn up for the interview 15, 20, half an hour, 30 minutes late. Okay, that's not a good impression. At the same time, you can have a genuine problem. And if something really arises on the day of the interview, when you reach, please make sure that you tell them. If they don't address that, don't think, okay, it's been ignored, let me not talk about it. If because of whatever reason something happened, there was a genuine problem, please mention that even if you're not asked about it. Say, I was late because so-and-so, this is what happened, and I really apologize for this. However, this was something that was not under my control. Okay, so you, even if they're not asking, don't think that you got away with it, because they will notice it for sure. So just don't walk in and sit and quietly think, chalo bach gaye. Okay, you will have to address even if you're not asked. Okay, so that is being on time and how you have to go for the interview. Then bring relevant information. Bring several copies of your resume to give to others with whom you may interview. Additionally, bring a separate typed list of at least 3 professional references. Each of your references should have a professional relationship with you. Bring along any supporting materials you might have. These materials may include letters of recommendation, certifications, transcripts, or published papers or projects. Okay, so these professional references are not really applicable here, but carry your resume in good condition, not folded and crumpled like that. Always carry an extra copy. It is always good to have it handy, and make a proper file. I don't want loose papers, because I've seen that. Believe me, I have had times where, because I've gone for interviews where people have just turned up when they ask for something, they just they're so confused because everything is not kept properly, and they will just keep looking for it in their file. So please, all that is very important, that you keep your original plus a copy of your documents, like your certificates from school. Probably once you get this certification of your course, once you finish the course, and your resume, all this should be filed very neatly, because they don't care how good the resume, but these are things that they will notice. How well organized are you? Okay, and how are you, like your body language, all this will be judged during the interview. So you have to make sure that you are prepared for that. Okay, so have a good neat file. File is very important. Don't carry your papers loose in your hand. Basic file. Okay, then step 3 is be honest. Do not overstate your qualifications, academic performance, background, length of employment, etc. The most important things are to be yourself, be confident in your educational preparation and experience, and have your career goals clearly defined. Yeah, so it's very important that you are being honest. First of all, if you are honest, you are confident when you say that. Okay, when you are cooking up stories, you will not be confident for sure, because that's not you. And when you're trying to cook up stories, you always fumble with your information, right? So always give the true information. Secondly, they can always ask to for supporting documents. Like if you say I scored 90 in +2, 90%, and then they see your certificate, which is completely the opposite, or which is not what you said. So don't get yourself into a problem which can be avoided. Okay, so don't oversell yourself. I can do this, I can do that. No, just say, be yourself, say what you are, and give your qualifications, your marks, whatever you were asked for, the way it is. You don't have to be 100% in everything, We are all humans. We are good at certain things. We are not so good at other things. Okay. So just give the information that is true. Be honest with them. Be personable and polite to everyone. Every person you meet during the course of the day is a potential evaluator. This includes the parking attendant, door person, administrative assistant, waiter, waitresses at lunch, etc. This is also another thing. While you're waiting, there are a lot of candidates for these interviews, and when you're waiting, how you are behaving in that environment with other candidates or with people that are sometimes these interviews are held in these big corporate offices or even sometimes the 5-star hotels and everything. So how are you interacting with the other staff there? How respectful are you? How are you interacting with the other fellow candidates who have come for the interview? All this will be noticed. These are things that you might not, you might feel there are so many people, they will not notice me. But there are sometimes even people, crew who are working for them, they are part of the interview. Okay, so they will be somewhere and they can judge you over all that. So don't start a fight with another person who's come there, or don't disrespect someone. Just generally, even otherwise you should not do it. But especially on this day of interview, you have to be extra careful. Okay, be extra smiling and all that. You have to do all that. Okay, smile at everybody. Even if there's a statue, smile at the statue. Okay, just keep smiling. Be aware of both your verbal and non-verbal communication. Make an effort to talk more deliberately and articulately than usual. Don't use words think, guess, or feel, which sound indecisive. Avoid phrases like pretty good, fairly well. Avoid constant use of filter. Words like right, like, etc. Use positive words to describe your skills. Maintain reasonable eye contact and be aware of negative body language, such as crossing your arms. Okay, so like we already discussed how important your body language is. Your words are not as important as the rest of your body language, your impressions, the tone of your voice. The tone of your voice is also very important because we don't, as humans, we don't talk like robots, right? In one monotone. So we always have that annotations in our voice, the pitch of your voice. All that is very, very important. You have to pay attention to those certain things, especially when you're answering a question, how you end your question. So they should get a feeling that, the answer is now ended. They shouldn't be sitting there and thinking, Acha, Abhi, she's going to talk more. So finish the answer in a way that it is clear that you finished the answer. And maintain a good eye contact. Don't stare at them like that, but look at them. Don't look down. Okay, so these are the things that you have to pay attention to. Even when you're waiting for your turn, you have to, your body language and everything. You can't be like just sitting there like this, always be on your phone. Interact with other candidates probably, that is a better, that will give you a better, that will give them a better impression of you, other than just sitting in one corner. And so you will be judged, like how good are you with people? This is a chance that you can show how good you actually are with people. Okay, so use that chance. There have been times where during the interview, they ask you, okay, since you were waiting out, probably you are answering one of your questions that, I'm a people's person, because this is something that everybody says, why you want to join aviation? I'm a people's person. I really like interacting with people and everything. We all say that, hai na? But then they'll say, okay, you were waiting outside for 1 hour and did you make any friends? And you have no clue who was there sitting next to me. So these are all situational questions that you cannot prepare for. Okay, so all these things might come up in an interview. They'll say, okay, tell me 2 candidates' name who outside you met and you interacted with them. So these are all these can happen. I'm not saying this will happen for sure, but this might happen. And you don't have to know the names, but just say, yeah, I was sitting, like we were talking, and there's this girl who also has come from somewhere, and just a little basic information. But there's no right and wrong in situations like that. But you might be asked questions like that. Okay. They want to know how good you actually are with people. Then be aware. We spoke about non-verbal communication. Yeah, and don't use negative words. We discussed this yesterday also. Try and use positive words. Don't say I don't like doing this. Rather say I like doing this. Okay. So don't use negative words. Try to put more positive words into your answer, and negative body language. Don't roll your eyes like that, or don't just slouch like that. Sit straight, and don't cross your arms. All this. These are all things that you should avoid doing. Right? Listen attentively, listen effectively, paraphrase to clarify, and confirm the interviewer's question and answer what is asked. Wait for the interviewer to finish speaking before formulating and delivering your answer. So again, you have to listen. Listening, we already said how important it is for effective communication, that you have to pay attention to what the other person is saying, listening to what the other person is saying, and not just hearing. There's a difference between hearing and listening, right? We remember that. Yes, we remember that, or we don't? That was the first module, I think, if I remember it right. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay. That for effective listening, you have to pay attention. You have to show that you are interested, and you have to make sure that the other person also gets signals that you are listening to him, like by nodding your head, or your expressions. All that is a part of effective communication. So this is also, listening attentively is very important. But there might be chances where when the question is asked, you actually genuinely did not hear it, or you did not understand the question. So in a situation like that, please go ahead and ask, can you please repeat the question? I did not understand. Okay, don't assume this is what he asked or she asked. Don't do that. If you genuinely did not hear, or you did not listen to what the person said, please go ahead and ask them to repeat the question, or say that I did not understand the question, right? Be prepared to discuss salary, or be prepared to discuss the topic of salary intelligently. Research the field and find out what the average salary is for your chosen major. The Career Development Center has the most recent salary surveys produced by, this is not applicable. Understand that salary may vary according to geographic region, size of facility, experience and education. Do not pinpoint a salary. If you are asked what you are expecting to earn, give a salary range rather than quoting a specific figure. Okay, this is generally a question for experienced candidates, because they ask you how much were you earning before this, and sometimes, a lot of times, they don't even ask you. Okay, but for freshers, generally you will not be asked questions like regarding the salary, and these industries, they already have a set salary for certain jobs. Like crew, they already have a salary structure, and they only offer the same. There's no negotiation basically, unless you are experienced candidate. So they will not, I don't think there will be a chance where they will be discussing salary with you. But in case if that happens, you can just say, diplomatically answer these questions by saying, I'm a fresher, and I'm here to learn more things, and not just to. Money is also important, but I would expect to be paid as per the company norms. Okay, so you don't say I want 8 lakhs, I want 10 lakhs. So you don't give a number, right? So you just say that I would be expected. I expect to be paid as per the company norms, or as per the organization's whatever structure they have. Okay, so don't come up with a number you have imagined and you think is a good salary. Don't do that. Don't tell them I want 1 lakh per month or 50,000 per month, and they probably want to offer you more, but now you've asked for 50,000. You only get 50,000. Okay. Yeah, so be prepared with an answer. If they actually ask this, how you would diplomatically answer. Say that I would expect to be paid as per the company norms. Types of interviews. Although you will be told what to expect in many cases, you may also be unaware until you actually begin your interview. Be prepared for any of the following types of interviews. The informational interview. This is not a job interview. It is set up by you to obtain information and advice on facilities, settings, and job search strategies through conversation with professionals already working in a particular career. The screening interview and the decision interview. Screening interviews are often very brief, 15 to 45 minutes and often occur in the human resources office. Although they are less intense than many of the other types, they are the most significant in many ways because they determine whether or not you will be invited to continue in the process. The decision interview, the person with the authority to hire you usually conducts this interview and it often entails interviews with several people over the course of a full day. So, okay, so the first type of interview that they've said, the information interview, it does happen in a few airlines, but very few airlines, where they tell you a little bit about the airline. So it's kind of an induction. It probably can happen on the same day that the other rounds will also be happening. So this is just the starting. So they give you a little information about how the airline works and the work culture, and these are the destinations we fly to, or maybe the hotel that you are going for the interview. They'll tell you a little bit about the hotel, or if it's a chain of hotels, that these are the destinations where we have our hotels. But most of the interviews, this is not going to be the case. But there are certain airlines I know, like I think Qatar does that, and even Saudi does that. So there are certain airlines that do that before an interview, just for you to get an idea what is it, and everything looks very nice. Okay, because obviously they will only tell you the good things about the company and what they expect you. Very nice things, that you'll be flying here and you'll be flying there and you'll be seeing this and you'll be earning so much. So all that, obviously they want you to they want a candidate who is really excited for the job, right? Because they also want people who are happy working there. So these are all things for them to lure you into the interview. So, but these are all, this is for something that happens for everybody. So this is not the deciding round of the interview. This is only information. Then is the screening round, which happens in all the interviews, where there are thousands of people who will come for the interview. So the first round is screening, where probably the HR will take the round and they will ask you basic questions, or probably just do your height and weight and see how tall are you. And certain airlines have a minimum reach round where there's a point that you have to touch. So basically they want to know, can you reach that point in case there are certain emergency equipments that you have to get off in an emergency situation? Can you reach up till that? So these are the screening round. They'll see your weight and height, and some airlines are very particular about how good your skin is, or do you have a lot of acne. So all this, some of the airlines have these kind of interviews, and this is basically the screening interview. And it can also have a few questions where the HR asks you basic questions. Tell me something about yourself. What have you done? Why aviation? All that. Then is the final decision-making interview, which is generally with the higher managers of the organization, who will actually decide if you go through with the job role or not. So this is actually, screening is also very, very important, because if you don't make it through the screening, you will never reach that next decision round, right? So screening is very, very important, because you have to, though it is very basic, but this is like the first step for you to clear the interview. And then is the final interview, where actually probably more questions will be asked, where there will be more interaction, and where the decision will be made. So you have to make sure your communication skills and everything is the best over there, fine? And in between, there can be a lot of different rounds depending on the organization. Every organization has a different way. Some airlines have a written test to judge your English or problem-solving capabilities, and some have a group discussion. So there are certain airlines also have interviews with the owner in the end. Okay, with the CEO in the end. So these are all different kinds. So basically, there are three main types of interviews. First is information, then is the screening, and in between there can be different rounds for the same information. You will get to know that only when you are going for that particular airline or organization, what kind of interview they have. Then is conclusion. If you are invited back for a second interview, remember that you have better than a 50-50 chance of receiving a job letter. Prepare for this second interview. The second interview will concentrate on more specific subjects such as salary, benefits, bonuses, and options. Remember to only address these issues if the employer raises them. The second interview may involve a tour of the facility, interviews with staff from several areas of the facility, and possibly tests or forms to complete. The interviewer should give you this information in advance. Whether it is your first job or fifth job in healthcare, okay, you want to find the right environment that matches your needs, values, skills, interests, and goals. Don't be afraid to turn down a job offer if after careful consideration you feel it is not the right step for your career goals. If this is necessary, do so in writing and courteously, because you never know what professional or personal ties this organization may have with others in your field. Okay, so in the end, if you go for an interview and you crack the interview, you are selected, you are shortlisted, but because of whatever reason you don't want to join that airline anymore or that company anymore, don't just abscond. If they are trying to get in contact with you, please reply. And even if that is not the case, just email or whatever contact you have, a phone contact or an email contact. Please make sure that you say that I really appreciate the offer. However, I'll have to, you politely turn it down, okay? However, I will not be able to join because of, give a reason, or if you don't want to give a reason, that is also okay. But just don't leave it like that, okay? Because you don't know, tomorrow you might want to join because of whatever reason, you might want to come back to this company. So you should never leave a job interview hanging, especially if you've been shortlisted, and they will remember people who've been shortlisted. Also, you should, for future references, it is always good to end things, whether you're leaving a company or you're not joining a company, at a good term. Okay, so don't just ignore their calls and mails. And even if they haven't contacted you, it's always, even if they don't read it, from your side, you've done your bit, right? Just leave a one-line email saying that thank you for your offer. However, I will not be able to join. Fine? Thank you letters. Thank you letters are the final step in the interviewing process, and most employers are favorably impressed by this professional courtesy. Statistically, less than 10% of interviewees ever follow up with thank you notes. However, a thank you note can make a candidate stand out from the rest of the applicants. A thank you note also puts your name in front of the interviewer one more time and re-emphasizes your interest in the position and your major qualifications. Your letter should briefly summarize your qualifications. Try to focus the thank you letter towards specific items that you discussed during your interview. The more targeted the letter, the better. Okay, so what they've spoken about this in this module is for a more specific role. You know, most of the times they don't expect a thank you, but it is because their emails are generally a company email, or there are also times where you can't revert to those emails. But if there are personal contacts towards the end who are sending you emails that you have been shortlisted, or if there's a call that you get, it is always nice to just again write one-liner saying, thank you for offering me the job role. I'm really thrilled and I'm looking forward to join your organization. Okay, that's always a good thing. It can never do anything wrong. Even if they're not expecting a revert, please do that. Say, I'm really excited and thrilled to join your organization, and I really appreciate the chance that you've given me. Okay, it's always nice. Sample thank you letters. And what they are talking about here is, I think, a completely different industry, the example that they've used here. So I think just a general one-liner email is more than enough. You don't have to send them letters via post and all that. So then is cabin crew job interview questions. So this is your interest, and this is important for you all. This is not only for cabin crew, also this is for all the other candidates who want to join the ground services or travel and tourism, anybody. Why do you want to be cabin crew, or why do you want to join aviation? It is almost like that. Okay, so if you want to be a part of the ground agents, you want to be a ground agent, then they will probably ask you, why do you want to join? Why do you want to be a ground agent? and you should all prepare these questions. Okay, so right now you already have one task for a week, and once we finish that task, we will start discussing these questions, and I want you all to answer these questions. Fine. There's no right or wrong, even if it's really basic, and remember to keep your answers very precise. I don't want like 10-15 lines per answer, especially these the initial questions they ask you, like tell me something about yourself. Probably two to three lines is enough. Okay, they just want basic, maybe 3 to 4 lines if you think you can't fit in everything, but they don't want like 10-15 minutes ka story you are telling. I was born in this day, and then 1 year ke baad this happened, and 2 years and happened, and this happened, and my mother tells me a story. No, nothing. Keep it very precise. Fine. Why do you want to be a cabin crew? Why should we hire you? Why should we hire you instead of someone else? Now, this is the time where you use that unique characteristics that we spoke about. Why do you have an edge over the other candidates? Right? Because I already have a little idea about customer service, and I think I fit into the role well, and which I think can give me a little edge over the other candidates. See, I'm probably in a better, I'm trained for it already. Tell us about a time when you provided good customer care. These are all those situational questions that you can be asked. Tell us about when your work or idea was criticized. These are the questions where you use the PAR model. Problem, action. What was R for?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, who's this? Mehak. Mehak? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question about the screening interview.
Okay.
Cabin crew, there's a criteria for height and weight, but is it the same for the management section and ground staff for all of them?
So basically, it doesn't have to be screening. Doesn't have to be. So height and weight is generally not an issue for the ground agents.
Okay.
But screening can have other things, like they will try to see how basic questions when they ask you. They screen you as a candidate. They profile you. Like, can you speak? Will you be able to speak people? So here they're not testing your knowledge in any sense, but they're just trying to profile you if you are the right fit for that job. Okay. So this is screening is just like a basic. They just basically get to know you as a person little bit, like how good can you communicate, how do you look, how do you, all that, height and weight for cabin crew, but they will not ask you a lot of technical questions here.
Okay.
They will only ask you, like, probably introduce yourself, because they want to know how good is your communication.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Hello, ma'am. I have a question.
Yes, Sakshi, go ahead.
Ma'am, the eyesight should be 6'6". So while going to interview, can we wear the lens or we can go with the spec?
No, you can wear lenses. Yeah, a lot of airlines, I would say for the interview at least, you have to wear lenses. Usually the medical round happens only after you've cleared all the interview rounds, and that day also eyesight is not a problem for your job. Certain airlines now also allow you to wear specs on board, but there are very few airlines like European and American carriers. Most of the airlines don't allow you to wear specs. Even Air India, you can wear specs. But other than that, if you wear lenses, if you're comfortable, Mahir, I think you'll have to switch off your microphone. Yeah, there was some kind of disturbance. So most of the airlines allow you to do that. So eyesight is not a problem. It's just you can't wear spectacles in a lot of airlines. You have to wear lenses. So you have to get used to wearing lenses.
Yeah, ma'am. So I have a question that if we go for an interview and there is a mark on your body, then
Yeah.
they'll ask about that.
Okay, so this is also another thing which is very, it depends on the airline that you're flying for. Certain airlines like the Gulf carriers especially are very, very particular. And if you do have some mark, visible mark, basically, they're looking for something in the uniform if it's going to be visible. So something on your hand or your face. These are the places where they really are considered. Some airlines, they have half sleeves. So you can't have any marks like in your forearm. Be very clear about this. Tell them that this is the case. If it is visible, you know that it is going to show, right? Because what happens is you, after you are done with your interviews, especially for the Gulf carriers I'm talking about, because they, and also the even like airlines like Singapore Airlines, even they,
Actually, I'm talking about this mark over here on the face.
On your face.
That's, yeah, that is visible.
Can you come closer to the camera? Okay, this necessary might not be a problem, but it could also be a problem. Okay, so it really depends on the airline.
Okay, ma'am. I'll just.
Did you say you want to? Earlier, did one of the Gulf airlines you're looking forward to join a Gulf airline? Did you say that earlier in one of the?
Yeah. I said that I want to join the Qatar.
Qatar or Emirates. Emirates is, I feel, still a little more relaxed if you compare it with Qatar. Qatar is very, very particular when it comes to your all these marks and everything. And if you don't declare it right now, because of whatever chance they didn't see it, and they have another round of medical when you go to Qatar. Okay, so, and that is a very, very thorough round. They will find it out and they will send you back for sure. There have been times where people have left their jobs and they've gone and they've been sent back. So don't hide anything just to get away with it. If you think that it could be a problem, it's better to tell them right now. If you think it is visible, otherwise take a chance, I would say. If you feel it's in your shoulder or something, take a chance. But otherwise, discuss this clearly, because you don't want to go there and then.
I had discussed it with Nargis ma'am.
Okay.
About this thing. So she said me that it will not be a problem. Like, just go for the interview. If they will say anything about the mark, just try to conceal that mark.
So especially for your, in your case, if this is going to be a problem, they will notice it on the day of the interview. Okay. Yeah, but if it's not, but if they don't mention it in the interview, probably this is not a problem.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
No problem. Anything else?
Ma'am, I have one more question.
Yes, Sakshi, go ahead.
Ma'am, if we have tattoo on our body and if it's not visible from the uniform, then is it okay or we need to remove it?
If it's not visible, it's okay. Do you have a tattoo?
Yeah, I have on my shoulder.
On your shoulder. Okay, it's again, I know of someone who was who was actually rejected because of this, because Qatar has a white shirt, and if it is visible through the shirt, then that might be a problem. But mostly it is not a problem if it's hidden under the uniform.
It's the small one. So
yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Okay. Yeah. I would suggest people who don't have tattoos and everything, please don't get any tattoos done if you want to get in an industry like this, because you don't, it is not something that I would suggest, basically, especially on your hands and everything. That is a complete no-no for this industry. There are airlines which are okay with it, but those are airlines, especially European and American airlines, because their human laws are very strong, and they cannot throw somebody out because they wear specs, or they don't even have height and weight. They have height but not weight issues, okay, because their human laws are such in those countries. But other than that, many of the airlines might have problems with things like tattoos and all that, okay. But if it's hidden, it's completely okay. I think a lot of crew, once they start flying and they fly to Bangkok or these destinations, they get tattoos made there, okay. So you will get to know once you start working with them. But I would suggest that avoid getting a tattoo in any of the visible places. Okay. Anything else? No one? Okay, fine. Do you want to start the next module, or is this a lot of information for you all? Is this like, because we've covered 5 modules already, I want you all to go through with these modules again, because like we discussed yesterday, most of you don't remember what was spoken about in the first module. Okay, so this is like a personal thing. I want you all to do it. We cannot discuss the same module again and again in the class, but please just read through it, it will just kind of refresh what we've already spoken about. Fine? And then we can continue with the 6th module if you all are comfortable with that. Otherwise, we can also talk about interviews and interview questions and all if you like that.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Sehes.
I would like to hear about medical checkup.
Medical, okay. Okay, you've got selected already. You want to know what happens in the medical? No? Jumping.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, anyways, so this is also generally all the airlines have similar kind of tests that you have to go through for your medical. You'll have an eye test. There's a test for color blindness, which you can also do on internet if you all want to know if you are colorblind or not. These are tests that are available on internet. So there's certain numbers that you have to read on a page. So this is something that they want to know. And if you are colorblind, that can be a problem. A lot of men are colorblind. So it would be good if you all can do that test online once for yourself, just to check if and it's a very common problem. There's nothing like a big deal about it. It's a very common problem. A lot of people are colorblind, and it doesn't mean that you can't see any colors. There's usually a problem with the shades of green and red, where the person doesn't have the ability to judge that color. Okay, so it's a very slight difference, but that is a part of the medical test. Then you have things like ECG, chest X-ray, and blood. A lot of blood tests, and what else is there? There's a test, audiography for your ears, and what else is there? Yeah, so I think some of the airlines have a little more advanced tests. And your hemoglobin is very, very important when you start flying. So if there's anybody who generally has low hemoglobin, you please start working on it, because less than 10 is not acceptable at all. Because they don't want people fainting on the flights, because it can be a strenuous activity for them. Anyways, what you on ground, as in when you're working on the aircraft, your body physically uses a lot more energy, because it's a complete, it's a pressurized cabin. Okay, so because of that, you have to be physically fit to be able to work there, and it's a lot of physical work that you have to do. So they want you to have basic fitness. So hemoglobin is one of the deciding factors. So anybody who has those issues, please try and increase it with good food and all that. Okay, you can ask your doctors about what can be done about it, but just generally eating more beetroot and eating more spinach and all that iron-rich foods can really, really help. Yeah, I think these are the most common kind of. So basic, they'll have a full body checkup, ECG, and how's your heart condition. They don't want anything major issues, but I've never seen anybody having a problem in the medicals. It's very rare.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. So in the past 5 modules, we have spoken about how important it is for you to set goals for yourself, a long-term goal, and then within that, you have to have these small goals. Once you reach these small goals, it kind of motivates you to go further, to push yourself further. So it's nice to have a long-term goal, but more importantly, it is important to have these short-term goals, where you achieve the goals and you can judge your progress. What is your progress? It's good, bad, you're lacking, or you're doing really good. So all these things are very important, and having a goal is very, very important. You can't think that I suddenly want to be successful. You have to have a goal in life and then work towards that goal, right? Only then you can have success. I say you just can't dream. I want that person is so, like, I like the way he or she is, and they are at such a good position today. I want to be there. Okay, you want to be there, but there has to be a goal of yourself. And to reach that goal, there has to be a plan. So that goal setting is very, very important to be successful.
Goal orientation. Goal theory is the label used in educational psychology to discuss research in motivation to learn. Goals of learning are thought to be a key factor influencing the level of a student's intrinsic motivation.
Okay, so I'll just talk about this. Okay, goal theory is the label used in education psychology to discuss research into motivation to learn. Goals of learning are thought to be a key factor influencing the level of a student's intrinsic motivation. So we spoke about motivation earlier, intrinsic and extrinsic, right? So intrinsic motivation is basically where you are motivated because of your internal feelings. There's no outside reward like salary or promotion. These are not the things that motivate you for a certain thing. These are intrinsic motivation because you feel satisfied when you do a certain activity, right? I like to help animals because that is your intrinsic motivation, because you really like animals. Okay, so that they're talking about here is goals of learning are thought to be a key factor. So when you set goals for learning, not goals only for success, and when you these self-learning goals, when you keep, this is a key factor to influence the level of students' intrinsic motivation. Okay, so when you are setting goals for learning, this is kind of an intrinsic motivation for you. Okay, sorry, I couldn't see. So this is when learning. See, I tell you all, please go online and look for stuff. So these are all you. If you start setting goals for this, that means that you are really motivated to get better at this, right? Only if you're motivated, you will set goals saying that no, I have to learn, I have to get better at this. And this, I can give you this as a task to do it during the course. But if you are motivated from internal motivation is there, then it is always better for your goal, right? So you have to be motivated. You have to motivate yourself to learn better. And we've spoken how important it is to increase your knowledge, whether that is good for your interview, job, good or not. It will always help you somewhere in your life, right? So you have to have this intrinsic motivation to learn, to meet your goals. Personal goal setting, find direction, live your life your way. Oh, sorry, Vaishnavi, please go ahead.
Find direction, live your life your way. Goal setting is a powerful process for thinking about your ideal future and for motivating yourself to turn this vision of future into reality. The process of setting goal help you choose where you want to go in life. By knowing precisely what you want to achieve, you know where you have to concentrate your effort. You will also quickly spot the distraction that would otherwise lure you for your course. More than this, properly set goals can be incredibly motivating. And as you get into the habit of setting and achieving goals, you'll find that your self-confidence builds fast.
Okay, yeah. So we just discussed this, that how important goal setting is, and during that, for your future. For your success, if you don't have a goal, you don't know in what direction you're going, right? You're always lost. You don't know what you want, and until you don't know what you want, you cannot work towards it. Only when you know what your goal is, you can work towards it, and you know that you're going in the right direction. When you don't have a goal, you can do this, that, you can just be wasting days, and you might be making progress, but you don't know that because there's no goal, there's no destination that you want to reach, right? So you don't know if you are in the right direction or not. And in between this, you need to have these short-term goals that we already spoke with, because they will motivate you, and this will boost your self-confidence when you think that, okay, I can achieve these goals. One by one, I am achieving. This was my first goal, this is my second goal, this is my third goal. And when you keep achieving these goals, this will build your self-confidence, because this gives you that energy that, okay, I can do this, probably I am good at this. So this will motivate your confidence, and obviously this will motivate you to go further. Okay, go ahead.
Achieving more with focus. Goal setting techniques are used by top level athletes, successful business people, and achievers in all fields. They give you long term vision and short term motivation. They focus your acquisition of knowledge and help you to organize your time and your resource so that you can make the very most of your life.
Yeah. So all these people that we know, all these successful people in their respective fields, whatever it is, whether it's athletes or it is a business tycoon, or these are people in or celebrities, they all have a goal. because they and they all should have a goal, because they worked towards that goal is the reason why they are there today. And if you don't have a goal, you will obviously you have nothing to focus on, and if you have nothing to focus on, you are just living every day after day, and you don't know what is happening in life, right? And once you have a goal, you obviously you plan for that goal. How will I reach my goal? These are the things that will help you focus there, and you will also realize if you're going off track, because you've set yourself, you made a plan to reach your goals, right? So even if you're going off track, you will realize it on the way that this is not what I was supposed to do, and this is what I should be doing. So you will avoid distractions, which is going to be better for your goal. Okay.
By setting sharp, clearly defined goals, you can measure and take pride in the achievement of those goals. You can see forward progress in what might previously have seemed a long, pointless green. By setting goals, you will also raise your self-confidence as you recognize your ability and competence in achieving the goals that you have set.
Yeah, so exactly they again said the same thing. When you have these goals, you will be more confident once you start achieving these small goals, and you will also understand what you are good at, because you don't know we always say that I know myself very well, and I don't like this and I don't like that. But when you're working, when you're living, just generally living your life, there are certain situations where you think I could have never done this, but now I feel I'm so good at it. So when you have a proper plan and you are doing things towards something, there are things that you find about yourself that you thought were missing in you, and this kind of builds your confidence, and this takes your journey further, reaching your goals. Right? Go ahead.
Starting to set personal goals. Goals are set on a number of different levels. First, you can create your big picture of what you want to do with your life and decide what large-scale goals you want to achieve. Second, you break this down into smaller and smaller targets that you must hit so that you reach your lifetime goals. Finally, once you have your plan, you start working to achieve it. We start this process with your lifetime goals and work down to the things you can do today to start moving towards them.
Yeah. So again, the same thing. You have a long-time goal, and you have to set yourself smaller goals, right? But just having the vision and having a plan will not help you. You have to start working on it, and we do not want to procrastinate by saying, I'll do it from tomorrow. You have to know, you have to start working your goals for your goals right now. Okay, so there will always be something that you can start with. You don't have to start big, but there will always be these small things that you can do on a daily basis, and these will be small motivations and and confidence building steps for you all. Okay, so having the long-term vision is always good, but you have to set yourself these small goals which are equally important for you. Okay, go ahead.
Your lifetime goals. The first step is setting personal goal is to consider what you want to achieve in your life, or by a time at least say 10 years in the future. As setting lifetime goals give you the overall perspective that shapes all other aspects of your decision making.
Yeah, so when you set yourself a long-term goal, basically when I'm when I cross 30s, when I'm 40, this is what I want. This will affect all the decisions that you make in life, fine, because you are working towards a goal that you set for yourself, and down the line you'll have to make a lot of decisions during these 10 years or 15 years, and a lot of decisions will depend on what goal you've set for yourself. If you know that I want to start flying, but eventually after 10 years I want to be in the management. So if you've set your goal and you are working towards that goal, so probably there will be a time where you will say that, okay, I wanted to fly, that is what I wanted to do, but to reach my goal that I've set for myself, now is the time when I have to go back to studying, or I have to do this job, or I have to change my job because I want to go into a managerial job. Okay, so your decisions will depend on that goal that you've set for yourself, the long-term goal, right? Okay, go ahead.
To give a broad balanced coverage of all important areas in your life, try to set goals in some of these categories or in categories of your own where these are important to you. Artistic. Do you want to achieve any artistic goal? If so, what? Attitude. Is any part... May I
Go
continue?
ahead. No, yeah, go ahead.
Attitude. If any part of your mindset holding you back, is there any part of the way that you behave that upsets you? If so, set a goal to improve your behavior or find a solution to the problem. Career. What level do you want to reach in your career? Education. Is there any knowledge you want to acquire in particular? What information and skill will you need to achieve other goals? Family. Do you want to be a parent? If so, how are you going to be a good parent? Financial. How much do you want to earn? By what stage? Physical. Are there any athletic goals you want to achieve, or do you want good health deep in old age? What step are you going to take to achieve this? Pressure. How do you want to enjoy yourself? You should ensure that some of your life is for you. Public service. Do you want to make the world a better place? If so, how?
Okay, so personal goals we've already spoken. Like I want to achieve so much, but these are all other things that they've said that they've mentioned, like that you should consider, which will help you decide on a lot of things. Okay, like suppose somebody is artistic. Do you want to set yourself an artistic goal? Do you think I want to do something in this field? If so, then what can that be? Or if there is a quality of yours which is stopping you from doing something, you have to first of all accept that and then try and work on that. Can I work, if I have a goal and this is what is stopping me from reaching that goal, I should work on this problem of mine. Okay, because I'm always procrastinating, I can never reach my goals that I have set for myself. So then you have to work on doing things, being out and then getting things done, and not finding excuses saying that no, I'll start tomorrow. So these are your attitude things that you have to think about, aspects of your attitude, of your behavior that you have to work on. So you have to really, sometimes we don't know ourselves so well as we really think we do, because these things are so well hidden within us. It is a part of us. Sometimes we don't realize these things that are holding us back. So you really have to give it a very, very good thought, that what are the things that are stopping, what are my weaknesses that are stopping me from going ahead. And after you find these things out, these behavioral patterns in yourself, then you start working on them. Okay, if you think I don't like doing certain things, but why do I don't like it? Because there is something that is holding you back. Okay, probably that was an experience you made in your life, but you have to overcome all that. So you have to work on that, but you can only work on that when you know what is the issue here. Then is career. What level do you want to reach in your career? See, a career goal, I think most of the people have. We don't even realize, but we just have something in mind. I want to do this. This is a very common thing. This is not even something we have to think of. I think most of us have a career goal. But just having a goal is not enough. Like I said earlier, you have to work towards it, and you have to realize what is important for that career. I want to reach there is good, but how am I going to reach there? Is there something academically that I have to do to reach that goal, or to reach towards that goal? If I have to do that, I want to be a recruiter, but for that I have to do MBA and HR, right? So there are certain things, certain decisions that you have to make for yourself. Then education. Is there any knowledge you want to acquire? If somebody says I want to be a pilot, so then you have to do a pilot's training. You can't just think, right? So you have to acquire that education. Once you've set the goal, there are certain job roles, or there are certain things in life where you just can't do it. Like if somebody has a long-term goal since early age, somebody wants to be a pilot or a doctor, they start preparing from it, like from your school. You need to have certain subjects to be a pilot, right? You can't just suddenly one day wake up and say, no, I want to be a pilot, right? So you have to start early. And there are certain educational qualifications that you need for a lot of things. So you have to work on that. Family, do you want to be a parent? If so, how are you going to be a good parent? Probably you all will not realize this right now, but later, especially for working people, you have to really decide sometimes you really have to decide, okay, this is the time when I want I want to be a parent. Okay, this is also a very important decision of your life, and this will come to you probably in some years, and you will have to make a decision. How financially, how much you want to earn, by what stage. Okay, we can all set up a lot of goals for ourselves, but during that journey to reach towards a goal, we realize probably this is not what I wanted. It's nice to have goals, but don't be very adamant when you think I want to do this, because this is a journey you're living, right? And sometimes in that journey you realize I had set up this goal, but this is probably during that journey you realize this is not what I want. So don't be scared of setting a new goal. That is okay. There's nothing wrong in that. Okay, some people are money driven, and they always, everybody needs money, that is, but some people are just more money, they're just driven towards money more, and they are very clear that by this age I have to have, I have to have a job which gives me this much salary. So it is good. That is their motivation. Please set up goals like that. If that is what drives you, please go ahead and set up goals like that. There's nothing wrong in being money minded, as far as that you're doing it in an ethical way. Then physically, like some people are very, very physically active, and they have this, I want 6 packs and I want this. But certain people exercise only to be fit because they want a fit life. They want to be fit even when they grow old. So this is your personal goal again, right? Maybe the looks is, for somebody, looks is the most important part, but for some people, health is the most important part. Okay, so all this depends on an individual, and accordingly you set your goals. Pleasure, how do you want to enjoy yourself? Again, pleasure, we can't only have goals related to work, money and all that. You need to have even the off time, like, certain people do these really stressful jobs, but they love to travel, and that is their medicine, right? So you need to have these goals even for pleasure, because if you have no pleasure in your life, your body will give up after some time. So it is also important to set up these goals. You can't only set up work goals and suddenly after 15 years you realize that was the time when I should have enjoyed, and I didn't do it, and those years are already gone now, and you can even start now, but that time is not going to come back, right? So even pleasure is very, very important. So set even those goals are important. Don't overlook that. Public service, do you want to make the world a better place? Yes, please. I think we all should have this goal, whatever drives you, whether it's saving the environment, saving the animals, or planting more trees, or saving water, whatever. But it is a very, very good feeling. Believe me, when you do something good for somebody else, it is a better feeling than buying an expensive bag or expensive clothes. And you will realize it when you get into activities like that. And you can only gain that through experience. When you do something like that, when you're doing something to save the environment, or helping people in the hospital or whatever, what motivates you. But it gives you a lot of satisfaction in your life that you are doing something good. You take something from the society, and you have to return something to the society. Okay, so I think that is enough for today, and so I will see you on Monday probably now. But I want you all to, again, I'm saying, please continue with that activity of yours of maintaining that chart of daily activities. Okay, that task is still on even if you're not meeting daily. Fine. And I will not give you another chance. Now I've been very patient with you all. Now it's been a few days. Okay, initially it was okay that you were not interacting, but now you all have to start opening up. You have to start interacting, and this is something that I will expect from you all. Fine. And if there's something that you don't like about the way I'm teaching, please tell me right now, because then I can work on it. Okay, and I would love to hear that, because it helps me also grow, and it is better for you and it is better for me. Fine. So if there is something, you can, if you don't want to say it publicly because you don't like it, then you can just send a message to me. Fine. So then you all have a good week ahead, and then we'll probably see each other on Monday again.
Here we go.